Hello, everybody. All right, so welcome to the Mikestand. It's Hump Day, of course, Wednesday. Um, so we're gonna give people a chance to come in here for a few minutes. So what I'm gonna do is I'll put some music on, go off camera for a moment, take care of some other things, and then I will. When I come back, we'll go over what's on tap for tonight and um and get started. So, anyways, put the music on here. Alrighty then. So, anyways, all right. So here's, of course, so we're coming up on 3 minutes here. So here's what's on top of that, and I know that I did mention that I would probably go over the indie comic showcase tonight. I'm going to push that back to tomorrow. There are a few other interesting stories that popped up. So a couple revolving around some anime releases, including which studios doing an adaptation of Suicide Squad, Isekai. Um, also, let's see, there's a new CGI animated series that's going to be part of the Mobile Suit Gundam universe, Universal Century in particular, and also um, we're going to look at those two articles are from Bounty in the Comics, and we're going to go over to Bleeding Fool and read an article from Avi Green around how, even if you are using comics to get people engaged, it might not be as good as you think if the focus is on the leftism, um, the divisiveness of the left. So, anyways, that's what's on tap for tonight here. Let's see. I guess we'll start a little early. Let's see. We'll give it a. Let's see. It's what, just 4:11 here. So, anyways, of course, we've been talking more about anime because this is around the time. This is around the time in July here when Japan does a lot of its summer releases for anime. So that's why we've been doing a lot of anime stories of late. We've been talking about anime and cartoons. With my Adventures of Superman coming out, and apparently not a whole lot of people are happy about it. So, anyways, let's see. We're now coming up on 5 minutes, so why don't we go ahead and get ready to get going here? Onto the first article, as it were. All right, so as I said, the first article we're going to look at here is this one right here. All right, Suicide Squad Isekai writer says one of his goals was, quote, to make Harley look cute. Now that's an interesting approach. I think a lot of people already thought Harley was pretty cute. Going back to the Batman the animated, back to our introduction in Batman the animated series. But let's see more of what they have to say here on that regard. It was only a matter of time before the Clown Prince of Crime received the anime isekai treatment. Warner Brothers Japan and Wit Studios joined forces to transport iconic DC villains into a fantasy world in the upcoming original anime series Suicide Squad Isekai. So here's their depiction of Joker and Harley. Okay. Yeah, Joker looking like he's a bit younger there. Announced during the studio's joint special Anime Expo panel, IGN reports series director Eri Osada confirmed the magic wielding iterations of Harley Quinn and the Joker are Suicide Squad Isekai's main protagonists, and emphasized the anime will feature an original take on the Clown Prince of Crime. I wonder what that's going to mean. Will it be truly be original, or will they be pushing what corporate media has been pushing the last couple of years here? Um, quote, everybody has their favorite version of Joker, unquote, Osada acknowledged. Quote, we ultimately decided to not copy any particular iteration and have something completely unique. That sounds promising. Based on the characters from the DC universe, the teaser trailer features fan favorite clown villains Joker and Harley Quinn, causing havoc in the streets of Gotham, as well as in a fantasy world consisting of dragons and giant pig. Wow, Harley, Joker, and giant pig monsters. That sounds like a very interesting combination to look forward to. Um, Wit Studio and Warner Brothers Japan went all in on Suicide Squad Isekai's production team, enlisting some of the best creators in the industry, including Regarding Zero Starting Life in Another World light novel author Tappei Nagatsuki, writing the script, and Hitman Reborn and Ron Kamonohashi, deranged detective mangaka Akira Amano to draw the anime's character designs. Oh, look at that. That's definitely an attention grabber, to say the least. See if anybody's here yet. As always, of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can like and share the stream and see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that, um, in comments submitted to the anime's official website, Nagatsuki and Amano expressed their enthusiasm for Suicide Squad Isekai. Quote, It is finally announced Suicide Squad Isekai Suicide Squad, unquote, Nagatsky proclaimed. It's a dream project that is sure to be delicious when mixed with other worlds. But can it be mixed with other worlds? Unquote. Quote, this work is a dream project about a crazy villain rampaging in another world, unquote. He added, quote, nothing more, nothing less, and it can't be anything else. That does sound very interesting. Excuse me a moment. I'm going to go off camera here for a quick moment. Take care of something here. Put some music on while I'm gone. Oh, oops. All right, I'm back. Let's get back to the article here. Let's see now. Nagatsuki's fellow screenplay writer, Eiji Umehara, teased the plot of the series. Quote, what would happen if the fascinating characters of DC Comics went to another world? I am honored to be involved in a work with such a boyish and straightforward idea. I drew a variety of villains with one goal in mind, to make Harley look cute. Wow. Quote, I hope you will enjoy, I hope you will join me in enjoying and enlivening this world, unquote, he concluded. There's Joker and his Joker mobile driving about. Quote, I'm a big fan of Harley Quinn and the other characters in the Suicide Squad, unquote, Amano acknowledged. Quote, it's an honor for me to be involved in the creation of Suicide Squad Isekai. Quote, the director, Eri Osada, clear vision for Harley's design, made the process smoother than expected, and I enjoyed drawing her costume and muscles while imagining her action-packed adventures in the story. Unquote. Wow, this guy really goes into detail on what he's thinking, doesn't he? Amano concluded, quote, I'm excited to see how the talented animation staff brings Suicide Squad Isekai to life. In his comments on the Suicide Squad Isekai website, WIT CEO George Wada provided insight on how the anime was greenlit, the company's partnership with Warner Brothers Japan, and even the possibility of a DC anime universe. Quote, finally announced, WIT Studio transcends beyond Japan to create an anime based on DC characters, unquote, he declared. Quote, it all started when I saw our employees mug with DC characters, and I asked him, quote, do you like DC? But we went to Warner Brothers, on smaller quote there, um, headquarter in the U.S. and now have full support from them and DC. Unquote. He continued, quote, I hope this will become the opportunity for DC characters to expand even further in Japan, unquote. I'm reminded of the Justice League episode where Justice League Unlimited episode um, where where Kara, Supergirl, Stargirl, Green Lantern, um, and Green Arrow. I believe it was for them who no, it was Stripe. It was as in Stars and Stripe. Stargirl, Stripe, Supergirl, and Green Lantern John Stewart. They had just defeated a monster in Japan, and all the little Supergirl fans were like, "Woohoo!" I remember that. Wada concluded, quote, the entire staff is working at full power for this show. We really appreciate your big support, unquote. Might be a very interesting anime to check out. At the time of this writing, the release date has been confirmed. Let's see. Oh, no release date has been confirmed for Suicide Squad Isekai. What do you make of the teaser trailer for Suicide Squad Isekai? And here's their version of Amanda Waller. The look here is kind of different from tradition. If anything, they've kind of done the opposite of what people here in the States, I've done. The States would have, States would have been all for the big Amanda Waller. This one, they trimmed her. It looks like they trimmed her down a bit. She's still got quite a bit of a muscular on her, but she's not like, what in Spanish they call gordo. So anyways, there we go with that one. There we go, that article. It does look interesting. It looks like, be interesting to see what Japan's take on the characters are, obviously. Here we go with moving on to the next article here. If you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Also, anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer questions to the best of my ability. So as we move on to, all right, so here we go with the next article here. Let me just double check where we're at on time here. Okay, 19 minutes. So. Mobile Suit Gundam returns to the Universal Century in new Requiem for Vengeance CGI animated series. Article by Nerdigans Inc., published earlier today. So, just as Mobile Suit Gundam The Witch from Mercury brings its latest season to a close, Bandai Namco Filmworks is hoping to keep the mecha hype rolling with the reveal of the franchise's next animated entry, Mobile Suit Gundam Requiem for Vengeance. I mean, you think about it, they've been going on for close to 45 years, like 44 years at this point, since it started back in 1979. Announced with a brief teaser video during the Bandai Namco Filmworks July 3rd Anime Expo panel, Mobile Suit Gundam Requiem for Vengeance is a brand new animated series consisting of 30 minute of 30 minutes and focused, quote, on the European front during the 1 Year War, unquote. Otherwise known as the Zionic War for independence, this conflict saw then budding revival of the Principality of Zion attempt to establish themselves as an independent nation by engaging in an all-out warfare against the Earth's then ruling Federation government. Recorded in the franchise's canon as the first conflict of the core Universal Century Timeline's Principality of Xeon versus Earth Federation War, this opening war is perhaps best remembered for playing host to the former group's devastating dropping of the Psi 2 space colony on Sydney, Australia. As noted by Bandai Namco, Requiem for Vengeance will take place in the ending days of the 1 Year War, roughly 11 months after its opening salvo. Further, in a departure from the franchise's usual fare, the series will also be animated entirely in CGI with Unreal Engine 5. So now they're going CG, which is something, CGI and AI have been a big piece of controversy of late, on those two fronts. In a video message published alongside the series announcement, director Erasmus Brosdow, who, of course, I guess directed The Lord Inquisitor, Seed of Ambition, Origin Zero, revealed that this new Gundam entry, quote, will shed some more light onto the 1 Year War by focusing almost entirely on the Xeon side, unquote. Turning to the choice to animated the I think it's animate the series, not animated. Animate series exclusively with CGI. The director explained, quote, "We want to show you the world of Gundam in the new and realistic look that you can feel like you're sitting in the Zaku cockpit," unquote. Quote, "But we are also trying to push the technical aspects by creating this entire series using Unreal Engine, a software which allows us to create content much faster," unquote. And unfortunately, at probably at a lower cost, because you don't actually have to pay, artists to draw it too. So you do, maybe you get some computer artists that you have to pay for, but quote, "I can't wait to show you how much more, so I hope you're looking forward to future updates." As of writing, Bandai Namco has yet to announce any sort of release window for Mobile Suit Gundam Requiem for Vengeance. All right, so there we go with that one. And of course, don't forget, we also will be doing Wrestling Wrap Up in This Day in Each History at the end. But now we're going to move on to our third story of the night, our third and final article of the night, going over to Bounding in the Comics, or not Bound, I'm sorry, Bleeding Fool, rather. An article that was published earlier today. So I said we'll do the Indie Comic Showcase number 230 tomorrow. So, but this is the one that this is the article I decided to go over here. Using comics to engage students won't help if driven by divisive leftism. Article by Avi Green, published Now, when I think to engage students, I'm thinking it probably means engaging them to read more, which we've talked about on this channel a bit. We've talked about, and I know other people have talked about the idea that some people, some that that's one of the things behind, I guess, free comic book day as well, where you're trying to get people, as a way to encourage people to read more, get them to read comics, you know, get kids to read more comics. So, wow. Hmm. Education Week, yeah, that's what I thought it was. Education Week gave 4 ways they believe comics can be used for involving students in school studies. Drawing from drawing from the work of a teacher, it begins interestingly enough with the following. All right, so from this art, from a separate article here, most classroom walls display rules about arriving on time and raising hands to speak. Tim Smith's has a sign reminding students, quote, "You're not allowed to ask which is better, Marvel or DC," quote unquote. Um, Even as he sidesteps fervent debates about which comic book publisher is superior, Smith um, leans into comics and graphic novels in his 10th and 11th grade social studies classes in Wissahickon High School in Ambler, Pennsylvania. He believes they can offer students an engaging entry point into history and world cultures. Ah, very interesting. Hmm, that's very interesting. I had a very similar thought process as I do. Uh, Back to Avi here. Sure, they can if they're written honestly, but if today's comics and cartoons in schools end up produced but for leftist indoctrination, sorry, folks. I once again forgot to. I keep forgetting to do that. I gotta go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back. But come on. All right. So, anyways, we're back now. So let's get back to this article here. Let's see. Then there's no point in their use. That said, how fascinating we're being told about this trivial argument about whether Marvel or DC is better, because not only was it ill advised to argue solely upon that years before, both companies have become unendurable since the turn of the century due to their shift into ultra leftist propaganda. But decades before, the bizarre mistake made in these quote unquote fervent debates was that they didn't seem to be based on story merit at all. They were just over whether specific characters in their titles were cooler or had better superpowers. It didn't add up to merit in the slightest, and that's what brought down superhero comics since. Now, as everybody knows, we've been kind of going over some of the comics from back in the very beginning, back in the golden age, and we found that sometimes the story writing back then wasn't always as well up as we would like. There were definite plot holes, but when you're getting into a new medium like that, you're gonna have some rocks in the road before you really find the right formula, right? And despite what's told here, few mainstream comics today are dealing with serious history or foreign culture unless it's selective. hmm Oh, and people say that's real history. That's capital H history, Smith said. His response, quote, yeah, so is Captain America number one, unquote. Published in 1941, just months before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the comic depicts a shield wielding hero punching German dictator Adolf Hitler. Once the United States entered the war, Captain America became a symbol of America's strength, values, and resilience, Smith tells his students. Uh, it doesn't hurt that comic books are clearly having a pop culture moment, giving Smith a way to bond with his students as they geek out over their favorite character. Now, mind you, as some of you may know, because we recently, in fact, it let's see, was this past Friday, in fact, back in the 7th, where we read up on a character by the name of the Shield, who actually predates Captain America by about a couple of years. So, yeah. So, anyways, for the patriotic theme hero, their quote unquote moment has had its day in the sun. Now that comics movies are on the decline, and even prior to that, mainstream comics themselves were long on the decline in quality. But seriously, while Cap once was revered as an important pop culture symbol for the United States of America, USA, as was Superman, that ceased being the case over 20 years ago when Joe Quesada and Bill Jemas set Steve Rogers along a path of political destruction, exploiting Kirby Simon's creation. That's Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. Those of you who may not know, for the sake of far left propaganda that did more harm than good. I just okay. So now here's I guess Avi talking still. By this point, the examples of leftist exploitation of Cap could surely fill a whole ocean liner, and it's unlikely to stop. Now here's an example of what was in discussion in this teacher's classes. One, analyze political cartoons. This is a social studies staple. One of Smith's favorites, a cartoon printed during the women's suffrage movement, showing a mother heading out to vote while her husband is at home caring for their children. The picture isn't exactly flattering to suffragettes. Quote, we have this whole conversation about strong women, unquote, how they might have been perceived when the cartoon was first published. As an involved father in 2023, Smith tells his students he finds the cartoon is also, quote, anti male, unquote, because it assumes that caring for children is burdensome and menial. Quote, when my wife goes out to vote or work, we're okay. I'm not babysitting my kids. I'm with my children, unquote, he said. Hmm. Huh. Man, I kind of like this. I like this teacher's take on things. He doesn't seem to be. He seems to be genuinely trying to analyze comics and not really going for the whole. Not going for the whole, you know, whole SJW stuff. At least from what I can tell here. Okay, I wonder where two is because have one here and then they go on to three. I wonder what happened to two. Use historical comic three. Use historical comic books. Smith also uses graphic novels to teach history. One staple, Medaya Mom, a free digital comic, tells the story of a real but anonymous mother's experience in Syria's ongoing civil war. Comic was produced by Marvel and ABC News. Um, Quote, it's a vehicle to take these complicated, huge historical events and boil it down to one mom, unquote, Smith said. Quote, that's why Anne Frank is so powerful, right? Unquote. He added, referring to a 16-year-old Jewish girl who died in a concentration camp during the Holocaust and whose diary, written while in hiding from the Nazis, is among the most well known first person accounts from the period. I'm hoping this guy isn't using the Anne Frank graphic novel we were talking about like a month ago or so. One with a hard leftist edge to it, where they were just totally just downline everything that was historically accurate and focusing more on like her quote unquote sexuality. Hoping he's not using that, but he's also a fan of March, a series of graphic novels chronicling the civil rights movement through the eyes of one of its leaders, the late Representative John Lewis. Um, mhm. And he shares a Spider-Man comic that tells the story of September 11th, 2001. It's set like the rest of the series in New York City. Quote, it actually is a really powerful comic, unquote, Smith said. Quote, it gets into politics and worldwide reactions and all these different things. And Spider Man is right there at ground zero, unquote. Now, going back to Avi here. All right, so let's see. Back to Avi's commentary here. Recalling Marvel's been doing pro-Islamic propaganda as far back as the time Grant Morrison put a character called Dust into the pages of X-Men, one can only wonder what Marvel's venture with ABC News was like. For now, it's most seriously dismaying this guy's sugarcoating the Spidey number 36 issue from late 2001, where J. Michael Straczynski and Quesada shoehorned the tale into the now moot and irrelevant run, which contained stealth victim blaming propaganda against the USA. The ultra leftist angle is exactly why they're getting into politics is such a botch. And again, it's insulting how so many heroes, like Thor, appeared in the story who could have prevented the losses. And even a number of villains like Doctor Doom, turn up who don't belong at the scene with all their own acts of evil on their resumes. Interesting. Let's see. And here's Avi speaking again. And calling the violence in Israel a quote unquote civil war is downplaying the seriousness of the issue considerably, even if it's a case of one jihadist movement against the other. And going back to Avi's source article here, Smith's students also make their own comic book creations, including an international spin on Captain America. Students choose a country and then create its superhero, figuring out what they would look like, what their origin story would be, what their powers would be, and what they do with them. And I think, and I do know that DC kind of did a similar thing back, I think, in the '60s. Um, let's see, I can't remember. I remember there was kind of a European group of heroes. I know one of them was Sir Percival, I think, or Squire Percival, something like that. But Batman allied with him. So back to Avi here. What are the chances anybody who dared dream of creating a hero who'd fight against Islamofascism would be censured by the school? Sadly, plenty. Going back to Avi's source article here, teachers who want to use these tools need to overcome the attitude that comics are just, quote, bam, boom, Superman in tights, unquote, Smith said, when they can actually be insightful and educational. Quote, if in brackets, people haven't ever really read a comic, a lot of times they don't understand them. Modern leftists definitely don't unless they consider them perfect vehicles for aforementioned propaganda. That's why left-wing teachers need to overcome the attitude that comics, whether famous classic creations or otherwise, are solely vehicles for political indoctrination, and if this article is any suggestion, they haven't. I didn't really see too much of that, but I could be wrong there. But anyways, as a result, even those who have read comics don't understand all that. And that's why the whole notion comics can make a great educational tool won't work in the long. Well, okay, that's where I kind of have to disagree with him. I agree with his point that it depends upon what you're using the comics for. Okay, using them to look at world history. Yeah, I think in a social science class, using comics as part of social studies curriculum, yes, that can lead more to. So I agree with him there. That can lead more to indoctrination. It's very easy to incorporate it into social studies lessons where you're trying to where teachers are in that position to where they can mold their students' ideology through indoctrination. Okay, but comics can be a great tool to encourage literacy. If and I've mentioned this before. There was this movie. It was back in the early '90s, starring Michael Tucker and Jill Eikenberry. It was called I think it was a TV movie called A Town Torn Apart. Okay, where Michael Tucker starred as Principal Lipitsky, who was brought into a school to try to improve the school. It was a school, I believe, in somewhere in the New England section of the country, where apparently it wasn't like a bad school or in a bad neighborhood. It wasn't like in an urban area. It it was still kind of a suburban area, but the school, like, I think they were having some issues where scores were down, what have you, and they were bringing this teacher in to try to bring the school back up to standard, as it were. And so, in doing so, he set some students aside who were a little behind. And of course, one of the things that they did was, remember a conversation that of course, Tucker and, all right, I guess that's PBUH, HX and X. I guess that's some kind of signal for Hail Xena and Xenu and all that. Yeah, but anyways, as I was recalling here, so as the story goes, of course, having a conversation, and the teacher was frustrated because, and this is supposedly one of the better teachers there, and he assigned her to basically try to help these students who are a little further behind try to get caught up. I guess the overall reading level of the school was a year to 2 years behind where they should be. And she was going, man, I can't get them to read anything. All they want to do is read comic books. And of course, Tucker, in character, Principal Lipke, said, so let them read comic books. They're reading, aren't they? So, again, it goes back to the idea, and I know Avi pointed that out in his article here. It goes back to what you're using them for. I would agree that, yeah, if you're using them in a social science class, then yeah, you're going to have indoctrination. Okay? I mean, you think about it, many of the, some people would argue that even the comics back in the Golden Age were a form of indoctrination, more of a pro-America indoctrination. So, but if you're using it for as a way to encourage literacy, to get kids more excited about reading, that in of itself is a good thing. Because ultimately, the more kids read, the more their language skills are going to develop, right? The more they'll not only be able to read, their comprehension will obviously escalate. They will be more inclined to use more proper language if driven in the right direction there. But as to the point of it being a bad idea in the long run, I don't entirely agree. I think it overall depends upon what you're using the comics for. What are you using? What are you using when when you are trying to engage them? That's where I think I'd have a bit more of a disagreement in. Anyways, now we're going to move on to the wrestling recap here, wrestling wrap up here. A few notes to go over. So, first off, in the WWE, let's see. So it looks like they're going to give Dominic Mysterio a shot at a title on NXT, as I think on next week's episode of NXT. He's going to be challenging the Wes Lee, the NXT North American champion, for the championship. This is, of course, plays up further the feud between Judgment Day and a couple of the guys from NXT. Now, mind you, there's been a lot of push for trying to elevate NXT from a development brand to a third brand, and that's why you've been seeing more and more WWE with some of the main roster stars going down, including like Baron Corbin, Mustafa Ali, and Judgment Day. You're seeing more and more of that happening, where they're trying to push it as a third brand in order to to hype up the potential signing of an extended deal there. Also, there is some sad news coming out of the WWE community as Mike Halleck, aka Mantar, who um, who had been in the at the time the WWF in the early 90s or 93, 94, around there. He passed away yesterday at the age of 55. He had been suffering from type 2 diabetes, from what I understand. But Mike Halleck, Mantar, passed away at the age of 55. Now going on to some AEW news, of course. If you're a Brian Pillman Jr. fan, and you wonder why you haven't seen him in a while, in like the last couple months, it's because his contract has expired with AEW, and they decided to release him. There is some talk they might at some point bring him back in the future, but I think they just don't have anything for him right now. But Brian Pillman Jr. has been released from AEW. Now, personally, I would like to see him go to the NWA, and I'll talk about the NWA here in a moment. I'd like to see him go to the NWA and become part of their junior heavyweight division, much like his father was part of the light heavyweight and cruiserweight divisions in WCW. Might be interesting to see how he works with some other second and third generation stars like Colby Corino, Kerry Morton, the current NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. Some potential tags with maybe Samantha Starr, the third generation star. So might be interesting to see him work there. And of course, tonight's Dynamite, as I mentioned, as I've been mentioning this week, will have the two semifinal matches in the blind eliminatory tag tournament, with the winners going on to the finals. The winner of the blind eliminatory tag tournament will be getting a shot at the AEW World Tag titles. The two semifinal matches that are happening there will be, of course, Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy taking on Daniel Garcia and Sammy Guevara of the Jericho Appreciation Society, and also Alex Cole and AEW World Champion MJF taking on Big Bill and Brian Cage. Again, the winners of those matches will be facing each other in the finals. Winner of the tournament will be getting a shot at the AEW World title. Also, tonight we'll see in the women's bracket of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. As of course, this week it looks like the AEW will be winding up its Canadian tour on this Saturday's Collision. You will have Ruby Soho taking on Sky Blue in one semifinal match. You have Willow Nightingale taking on Athena in the other women's semifinal match on this Friday's Rampage. The winners of those two matches will be facing off each other on this Saturday's Collision. This Saturday, of course, they'll have both Collision and Battle of the Belts. Already signed for Battle of the Belt, of course, Luchasaurus will be defending the TNT title against Shawn Spears. You also will have the finals of the Owen Hart tournament. The men's finals already set. CM Punk takes on Absolute Ricky Starks, and the women's final will be set during this week, during tonight's Dynamite and tomorrow and this Friday's Rampage. Now, some quick NWA news as Power has returned to YouTube. You can catch Power every Tuesday at 6:05 Eastern time, Eastern Standard Time, on YouTube. As they now start to, season 14, as they start to make their way towards the anniversary show coming up at the end of August, celebrating 75 years of the NWA. On last night's Power episode, you saw EC3 with a successful title defense of the national title against Throwbilly Silas Mason. Some interesting notes coming out of that. First off, I think that was his 7th successful title defense because he relinquished the title in order to set up, looks like to set up a world title match against Tyrus at the anniversary show coming up next month. Also, I believe signed for the anniversary show will be the women's world championship, Camille, the one-time NWA World Women's Champion, defending against Natalia Markova. Now, it would seem that Mason may be turning heel. He's joined a faction known as the Southern Six, which is headed up by, of course, Kerry Morton and Alex Taylor, and Kinsey Page are also involved in that. Not much. We first saw them on the Australian tour a bit. Also, I guess the heel turns particularly for Mason started at Crockett Cup. Apparently, it looks like they may be splitting him and Pollo Del Mar up a bit there. So, also Camille wrestled in an 8-woman tag match with NWA World Women's Tag Team Champions M95 and Ruthie J. In a losing effort to Markova and Pretty Empowered, in which Kylie Page, the newest, youngest, and least experienced member of the faction, got the pin on Ruthie J. And in a non-title match, the Brothers of Construction, Rufo the Clown and Yalo the Clown, got the win over NWA World Tag Team Champions Live Rebellion, potentially setting up a title shot for them as well. So that's all we got on the wrestling wrap-up here, folks. Now we're going to start to wind down here as we will get to this day in each history. Today being July 12th, 2023, we're going to take a look back at this day in each history. History! All right, so first off, I'm going to head back 50 years ago today, as on this date 50 years ago today, I don't know why they did that, but anyways, on this date back in 1973, 50 years ago today, Walt Disney's 50th anniversary show. That's right here. On that day, 50 years ago today, Walt Disney's 50th anniversary show premiered on this date 50 years ago today. So there we go with that. And we move on to the next piece of niche history here. If you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here. And if anything we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to ask questions and or comments, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that, let's move on to the next piece of niche history as we move ahead to 1994. As on this date in 1994, the 45th issue of Barbie from Marvel Comics went on sale on this date back in 1994, which of course was 29 years ago today. Story was Practice Makes Perfect, written by Barbara Slate, penciled by Barb Rosh. Romeo Tungal did the inking. Loretta Kroll did the lettering, and then Ben Sean did the coloring. So on this date in 1994, 29 years ago today, the 45th issue of Barbie from Marvel Comics went on sale on this date. Also, moving ahead to 1998, which was, of course, 25 years ago today. On this date, 25 years ago today, WCW held its Bash at the Beach event from the Cox Arena in San Diego, California. Now, of course, we talked a little bit about this because we did a history segment from the Monday night before this on the 6th. But on this date, the Bash at the Beach event saw Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman, with the Disciple in their corner, defeat Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone. Goldberg retained the WCW World Heavyweight title over Curt Hennig after having just won it, of course, having his first title defense 6 days after winning it from Hogan on the previous Monday Nitro. Booker T retained the World Television title over Bret Hart via DQ. Rey Mysterio Jr. defeated Cruiserweight title. The Giant defeated Kevin Green. Let's see. Anything else? In a hair versus hair match, Eddie Guerrero defeated Chavo Guerrero Jr. Chavo Guerrero Jr. also suffered a loss to Stevie Ray earlier in the evening. Raven defeated Saturn in a Ravens Rules match to start off the pay-per-view. So with that happened, of course, 25 years ago today. Let's see now. And finally, let's see now. Finally, going back. Oops. Going back 10 years ago today, on this date in 2013, the following animes made their premieres on Japanese TV. Tatsunoko's Productions' Gatchaman Crowds and David Productions' Hyperdimension Neptunia, the animation, both made their Japanese premieres on Japanese television on this date 10 years ago today. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Forget, we'll be back here tomorrow night with more news, more niche news. We'll probably be going over the indie comics showcase then. Also on this Friday, I'll have Metal with me from the Vomitorium, as we'll be looking over comics that went on sale in November 1939 from the company, from basically the company that would eventually become known as Harvey Comics. Brookwood and Worth Carnahan are the actual names of the companies we're going over, but books that were eventually bought up by Harvey, we'll be going over those books this Friday. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope you all enjoyed the show. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.